Hello, Solange. Good day to our channel viewers, to all other possible viewers in the future. Today we are going to have informal discussion with Professor Solange Locatelli from Brazil. And I'm going to shortly introduce Solange. And Solange Locatelli is professor at Federal University of PIBID in Brazil. And as far as I know, she currently works at the Center for Natural and Human Sciences at Federal University. And she is also obviously deeply involved in scientific academic research, mainly, for example, in secondary education area, higher education, and in particular, that is so interesting for me, in particular, in science education. And her main skills or expertise can be described in some keywords as metacognition, chemistry education, inquiry-based learning, science education, etc. This is also so important and interesting areas. And I give the word to Solange because the best source for information is person itself, and because it's not possible to know. In my case, I just checked some information online, obviously, but on the other hand, I know Solange personally, and we communicating for some years, and but nevertheless, please, Solange, maybe you want to add something about you.
Sure. Hi, Vincentas. How are you? I hope you are well. You and your family.
And we continue to work, as I said. Also
despite all the problems we are going through, but we have to move forward. Here in Brazil, we are concerned about all the global things that are happening. For example, the Ukraine war, but okay, we are not going to talk about this right now, unfortunately, but yes, thank you very much. I want to start by acknowledging you, Vincentas, that are always so involved with the questions, issues on scientific education. This is absolutely important for all of us. I think you have initiative all of the time to promote this kind of conversation, symposiums, and etc. This is, I would like to highlight this because it's really important. So I want to start by acknowledging and for an invitation to be here and to talk some important issues, because it's always important to talk about science. I do like it. I think it's my passion, of course. Well, I've worked in a public university since 2016, a federal university. In Brazil, we currently have 69 federal universities serving about 1.3 million students. In addition, we also have state universities and federal institutes that make up the system of public universities in Brazil. All of them free access. This is very, very important. All of them free access. So we have free access to all of the students who want to get into the university. The university I work for is the Federal University of ABC and is located in Greater São Paulo, in the cities of Santo André and São Bernardo. I think Vincentas have been here once, and you know it's very close to São Paulo. And
yes, Solange, really, for me it's more or less it's a little bit more understandable situation because I visited twice your university, and at least they have some imagination about this university. But having in mind, you mentioned that, and also in the title, official title of this university, it's written that it's federal university, and you mentioned also state universities. Can you shortly describe possible differences between federal and state university?
Oh, yes. Actually, they are public universities, and federal is the charge is from federal government, and state is governed by the governors. So the money is different. Where they come from is different. Federal, of course, the federal government, and state from state. For example, São Paulo, it's a state that have money comparing to another state. So we have state universities here, and all of them are high quality. They are very, very good because we have money to put on them. Not all the money we should like it, but we would like to have, but kind of it's interesting. But the difference, we have many differences, but I think the most difference is where the money comes from. Is different.
And another, I hope that it's quite interesting aspect. Official name of university, ABC. It's not so typical.
Yeah.
Usually, it's, for example, University of São Paulo. It's mainly named based on the city, the location, for example, or for example, University of Latvia. It's like country name. Yeah, and in your case, it's University of ABC. Can you shortly?
It's very curious because it's about located as well. A, Santo André, B, São Bernardo, C, São Caetano. They are part of the cities, and we have D, it's Diadema. So we have ABC, it's a kind of abbreviations of the cities. So it's not ABC, the alphabet, just ABC, D, E, F. No. ABC because of the cities. University of São Paulo because university is located in São Paulo, and so on. I think it's the same. But it's very interesting because it's not clear that is how it works. We have to explain.
Yeah, sometimes impression, at least for me, I remember the first impression was ABC. It's like alphabet, yeah?
Yeah.
It's like so, maybe a university for kids.
Yeah. So amazing. It's very cute, very beautiful.
It's a quite large space for interpretation, yeah, and for your imagination at the same time.
Yeah, but you are right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, I do agree that it's really serious academic university. Yeah.
We don't.
Okay, Solange, let's go further. And my typical next question is about education system in your country, in Brazil today. And obviously, we do understand that in every country, the education system, from one side, is more or less the same. I mean that we have more or less the same type of schools, some type of subsystems, for example, like higher education, like primary education, or secondary education, or vocational education, etc., or teacher education. But on the other hand, every country has own context, own specificities, some known or unknown aspects, etc. Can you shortly describe education system in Brazil? What is common, for example, what possible not?
Yes, I think we have, different countries have, each country has your educational system. Here in Brazil, we have the basic education, which comprises from early childhood education up to 6 years, elementary school that has 9 grades, which goes from about 7 to 14 years old, approximately, and high school lasting 3 years that serves from 14 to 17, 18, where my daughter is right now. When the students then they finish, the students get into the university, higher education. So we have, briefly speaking, this system in Brazil. We have a particular thing that's happening right now. The basic education recently, a document was approved that's the Common National Curriculum Base, whose objective was to have a common national curriculum base throughout the country. Seems good. Good. No, because the base, how we call, presents profound problems, according to the experts in education and public education in Brazil. Because being in fact a policy of curricular centralization, that's not good. The characteristic is the attempt to standardize the contents to be applied throughout the country. But imagine it, with this itself, it's a problem because Brazil is a country of large continental dimensions. We have different problems. So having a common basis does not seem to be a good way. And we are right now implementing this in the high school, because in the at elementary school we have already implemented it. But actually teachers are very confounded because they don't know how to deal with the things, how to apply competences, abilities. It's kind of different from what we had before. So we are going through this phase right now it has been very, very challenging from the teachers. High school, higher school education is different. We don't have the base. The basis for basic education from 4 years old to 17, 18 years old until the end of the high school. And this has been a big problem for us right now, because it's very difficult to deal with this. And actually the educators didn't participate for real in this elaboration. So we are facing this difficult right now.
Obviously, it's as you mentioned, I do agree. Country, it's quite large country, big country, and obviously population size. How big is population, for example, today? It's
about 200
more.
200, 200 million people,
Population. Yeah. It's a really huge system, education system, I mean, and possible also some large diversity. For example, having in mind of minorities. Can you shortly describe this?
Yeah, because exactly, trying to solve this, the base was organized in such a way that 70% of the contents are considering the minimum for all, standard for all Brazil. We have to follow this. And other 40% in thesis would consider the diversities of each region. For example, in Acre, it's located in north of Brazil. We have problems that we don't have here, and vice versa. So we have 40% that we could work on this. But however, external evaluation will be focused on mandatory content, not in this part that means diversity, with teaching nationwide. The part of it is mandatory. That said, the 40% diversity part tends to be left behind, of course, because what means that if I'm teaching, I will focus on external evaluation because it's how I will be evaluated as well. So I don't have time to concern about diversity. It's an absurd, because of course the more important thing at school is about the diversity, because We have to involve, to engage students in the daily problems. But if you have some very inflexible things to follow, you have problems and difficulties to implement this. And this is a problem. And for example, in Acre, as I was saying, I was being in Acre, is very far from where I live. The problem there is about rubber. The trees that we can take rubber, for example. And here in São Paulo, we don't have this kind of tree, for example. So if I propose something about this here in São Paulo, doesn't make sense. But for them, it's totally crucial. They want to know about that. How can I extract rubber from the tree? It's very important. And how can I use it? How can I sell this? So what I mean is we have different problems in Brazil. I just cited the one example, but we have many problems, and we can't deal with them the same way. We have to deal different ways, but the focus is on mandatory content, so it's very difficult to get a balance on this, and this is a problem. And you could say, and what are you going to do? Actually, we don't know. We are trying to deal with this right now. And it's very difficult.
Yeah, but it's possible. Obviously, it's from one side, it's like content, common content, for example, from curricula or based on curricula, and context, also context, because context is different in different regions of such a big country. And but possible not only content or context aspects are important, but also for example, possible different level of education, different regions, for example, one possible situation in big cities, large cities, and another situation in the regions which are difficult to reach, for example, Amazon region, it's at least my imagination.
Yeah. Amazon, it was I was talking about, because Acre is located in part of the state in Amazon, so they have their own problems that we here in São Paulo, many students, the major of them doesn't know about Amazonia. They have never been there because it's so far from here. So it doesn't make sense. You take a discussion and bring here. Of course, sometimes yes.
This is somehow we agreed before that we will not go into political issues, but somehow we should mention it's not possible to fully avoid this. It's also important. I mean that, for example, now it's discussion about Russia, for example, that more than 80% of people, of population, have never been abroad, somewhere abroad. It means that they are closed inside their big country, big territory, and they have no imagination, no understanding about how people live somewhere in other countries. And in this case, so-called propaganda works very well. But I think that somehow this is, as you mentioned, it's somehow common in Brazil also, because, for example, people who have never been in Amazon region or other regions, and it's also difficult. But my another point is, I mentioned this is quite important and interesting at the same time, minorities, how to teach minorities, students, children from minorities, for example, because in Lithuania currently this so burning issue how to teach Ukrainians, as we discussed just before this our discussion. We have many refugees right now, and obviously they are interested. Obviously, Lithuania as a country, Lithuanians are interested to help, to support them, but also people by themselves are interested to learn, for example, Lithuanian language. and or not only language for kids, for example, to continue their studies, because their studies at school were interrupted. They are aggressively interrupted, and they need to continue. For example, I remember we continuously now discussing, and our ministry accepted the special order how to create possibilities to pass final abitur exams for Ukrainian students who are already in final grade, and how to create possibilities to continue for them to get education, etc., to pass exams. And also for adults to learn, at least to learn at the beginner level Lithuanian language for better communication, etc., because nobody knows how long the situation continues, obviously. And as far as I know, from my at least perspective in Brazil, not a lot, but many Lithuanians and Lithuanian, the community of Lithuanian people. And my question is, do you have some, for example, schools for specifically dedicated for minorities? For example,
from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have, but it's very small quantity. We have bilingual schools in São Paulo, for example, and some classes are given in English, for example. And but it's not our focus, because first we don't have this. We don't have many foreigners here. We have, of course, but not in quantity. We don't have it too much. And we have this kind of schools, but in public school, I think it's very difficult, because in Brazil, we don't speak English. It's very uncommon. You find someone who really speaks English fluently. In the streets, you have been here, you know that it's very difficult to find someone who speaks English fluently. You can find, of course, you will find these people, but it's not common. Like Finland, for example, I've been. Even in Lithuania, I didn't have problem with English. So, but here is different. And so, for minorities, like you said, we have this kind of schools, but we don't have many schools for this. It's very. We have some brothers here that speak Spanish. They speak Spanish, and we have some problems, because Spanish is close to Portuguese, of course, but it's not the same. And it's not so easy to understand. You listen and you understand. No, you have to practice it so you can understand. And they get to do the school, and they have to deal with this by themselves.
Yeah,
it's very
but
difficult.
Obviously, we do understand that discussion can continue, because a lot of things, interesting issues, etc., related to education. But we know that in each country, in every country, or every country faces certain challenges. Some challenges, for example, as I mentioned, as big or smaller doesn't matter, but at least some challenges. For example, for us currently, how to adapt, how to integrate refugees' children to our education system, and to give for them some opportunities to continue their learning process. And what are the key challenges, for example, can you describe in Brazil, for example, today?
Oh, today our bigger problem is to get another government, and we will do this at the end of the year. Thanks God for that. At the end of the year, we will have elections, and I'm really talking serious, because we have right now, Vincentas, a blackout on political education. This is very serious. Blackout. We don't have educational policies right now, and we are moving back. And we had problems in education, but now we have more and more problems in education. So I think this is, for Brazil, I think this is a big problem. But hopefully, at the end of the year, we have a hope to solve this. But speaking globally, let's say, it's a complex question you asked to me, because I could say in general, I think a great challenge is to have an education where the focus is the understanding of the world by students, and consequently active action on his or her world. It looks like it's simple, but it's not. And I think this is the key for the education. The students should understand, get involved, to reflect, to rethink. That's why I love metacognition. We are going to talk later. The issues that are really relevant in their community, but not all that. Angela loves that the issues in the community. It's so important for them, the students, to know about that, to go beyond. I think it's important to have a broader view of the world, maybe in the line that Freire, I think you know Freire, yes, a Brazilian educator. I love him. I love his ideas. What he defends, a quality education that should be transformative. What that means? Otherwise, the school can become something boring, and this indicates that something is wrong in the process. So if the school is transformative, the students could engage more and more, and they really can transform his and or her world. Maybe it's an utopian idea. You say, oh, but this is not possible. I think it is. And I think education is the way. It's not a common sense, like someone could say, oh, education is the key. Yeah, it's the key for the change in all of the world. Because without education, people perish. This is... I don't know if you agree, but yes.
It really would be a deep discussion about... Yeah, you mentioned about... Let's return back a little bit. You mentioned about policy, education policy in your country. Do you mean state policy at state level, governmental level, or, for example, local level? I mean, like in state policy, because different levels of education policy.
No, I'm talking about federal issues, because federal is about the president, and so of course they don't want people get into the education, because it's not good. And I think, you know, he has been pursuing Paulo Freire, for example, his ideas, of course, because he's dead, unfortunately, but he's pursuing his... And why? Because the ideas of Paulo Freire are transformative, and this is not good for a dictatorial government. So we are in this blackout because of this. We have the Minister of Education, and we don't have anything. We are always freaking out about something that's announced by them. So this is our situation, unfortunate. But yes, like I said to you.
Yeah, and as also I read some papers before this discussion. I also, in particular, I checked some latest information. But quite often in media, in different types of media, we can find information that quality, for example, quality and equity are mentioned like two main challenges, crucial challenges in Brazil. And do you agree with this position? That quality and equity.
Yeah, like I said, yes, totally agree, because hopefully in the next government, 2023, we can start the necessary investment into education, because, like I said to you, we have now lack of blackout of the policy education. We have some policies education. It's not zero, of course, because we have state initiatives and we have another things, and we have some programs that has been carried out during all of these years, because they started before, so they continues, and so okay, it's not zero. But I think we need to face the real problems of education in Brazil. What are them? Lack of structure at schools. Vincentas, it's horrible. Teaching valorization that we don't have. For example, we don't have water in some schools, light. We have exhausted the teachers because they have to work 6 hours per week. Can you imagine that? 6 hours per week, poorly paid.
6 or 60?
60, yes, 60. Not 16. Yeah, 16, well, it was good. Okay, 60. 6 and 0. 60. Yeah, it's too much. We have a problem, a big problem that is school dropout right now, and because of the pandemic context, but not so because of the pandemic context, because of all of this.
Yes, but Solange, in addition to your comment, I read that Brazilian government generally has failed to address a huge impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on education, at the same time leaving millions of children with little or in total no access to school. Is it true or possible reasons for this situation?
Yes, this is a difficult situation to analyze since many factors are involved. But first, we have a difficulty of the government in dealing with the issue of the pandemic. That's it. Since the nation's leader did not consider the relevance of the situation, ignoring it, thus reducing it. So the message to the nation was confusing, because on one hand, leaders from all of the world involved in combating the pandemic and advocating that science was indicated. That I think it's the way. Of course, science is it. What science is indicating, it's what I have to do. For example, isolation, use of masks. The president didn't use masks. Can you believe that? For example, not right now. I'm talking last year, for example. And the government always minimized the effects of it by prescribing, proving ineffective medicines. Can you imagine that? Called the COVID kit for the precocious treatment with the prescription of chloroquine, for example. Right now, I'm not talking about the past, only about the past right now. And thus, at a time when everyone has abandoned, given up the possibility by deserting of its ineffectiveness of fighting the virus in this way. We know we can combat the virus taking chloroquine, for example. The consequence of this was a number of more than 600,000 deaths in the country up to now, and a delay in the start of vaccination in the country, which in turn also delayed the return to face-to-face classes throughout the country. During the pandemic, it was very difficult for children to access their studies, of course. Few of them had a structure at home and internet access. This is a big problem here in Brazil. We don't have this. And it was a very difficult process, getting millions of students with little or no access to school. This problem we've faced now because the delay is too big, of course. For example, we have 8 and 9 years old students, for example, who are not adequately literate, for example. Can you imagine that? They don't know how to write their names. We are still going to see the impacts later, but we are absolutely concerned because we have a hole to deal with this. and it's very concerning, and it's all about we don't like to speak about politics sometimes, but it's the environment we are right now. So we had consequences about how the government dealt with the problem. Of course, all of countries in the world are facing problems because we have, of course, pandemic context. But here it was, it's more than
Yes,
for
but
other
at
countries.
the same time, let's say, trying to solve such problems, not to keep without any solution. For example, as you mentioned, millions of students without access to school. And now question is how to fill this gap. It's not so easy, obviously.
No,
But
no, no.
yeah, but recently I read that education sector is a high priority for your government in Brazil. Is it a contradiction? Is it true, or just a political veil, for example?
I wish, I dream that could be, and I think maybe in the future, but absolutely not. Opposite.
Yeah,
As I said, yeah, as I said in advance, we are facing a blackout with regard to public policy. As an example, the government has tried to undermine the image of a greater educator in Brazil, Paulo Freire, like I told you. Why? Because Paulo Freire believed education has to be emancipatory. That is, the individuals learns about his her daily life to modify it, like I told you. And of course, this does not interest to authoritarian governments like this. So right now, we don't have high priority. We don't have priority. Actually, we don't have anything, but we have hope because, Vincentas, Brazilian educators are fighters. Despite all of these difficulties, everyone at the university, at the schools, are fighting very, very hard to do a good job. Besides, in spite of all of this, so I believe I hope so, in a future very close, I will talk to you differently. I hope so.
Solange, I hope so. But in relation to what you have said, I want to ask about, for example, university as academic institution, higher education institution. Does your university has some impact, for example, on this policy or on some changes, for example, how to reinforce education system? What, let's say, is the role of higher education sector, for example, in general, and also your university in particular?
Yes, we have many impacts, and one of them that's very, very huge and very, very big, it's about research that has impact on education, of course. Research, we don't have money actually right now, because the money that was destined to research was cut, because doesn't matter research, and the money to education as well. So if we don't have investments in education and research, of course we have huge impacts, and big lot of impact. And we are right now studying and reflecting about all of these impacts, because we are about 4 years surviving at the universities. The money is cutting day in, day out, and for research is very difficult. Who has working at the labs, for example? How can you buy in shoes? It's very difficult. Insumos, and that's it. So I don't know yet, because we are in the situation and we have to analyze, and we have to move forward the situation. That's very concerning. It's very complex, actually.
Okay, Solange, it's really interesting. And let's go to our next topic, favorite topic, I would say, at least from my own perspective, science education. Science education.
Yes.
Was both of us somehow are science educators, I hope so, and at some extent. And you represent the field of science education, obviously, and it's would be interesting to know more about how you assess, for example, the state of the art of science education in Brazil in general. And for example, like you mentioned shortly already, but science literacy among young people or on society in general, for example.
Yes, I believe that we still have much progress in this issue. We have some initiatives in schools and many no-formal education spaces, such as museums. We have many museums here in Brazil. For example, Modern Art of São Paulo, MASP, that's located in Paulista Avenue.
Solange, I want to interrupt you because I remember my visit, I think possible first or second visit, and we visited one school in São Paulo. Our colleague Agnaldo and Dircea, and it was I remember this obviously public secondary school, and one group, let's say, of students finished their classes, I understood, from the morning period, and the second group waited outside the gates and just entered during midday approximately. And I asked about them what they are going to do after regular lessons, after regular school hours. For example, to go, to some non-formal institutions like music school, like dancing school, I don't know, art school, etc. And the answer was quite interesting. They said no formal education because we have many students and we have no time to organize non-formal education. That was my impression.
Oh, yes, I get it, what you are talking. Because, yes, we have many educational spaces that are no formal. Like I said, MASP, zoo, science centers. Catavento is a known one. It's very interesting science center. But what you are saying, you are right, because for schools to organize them and to keep to take them to the for a museum, for example, it's very difficult. For high school, it's not so difficult because they are bigger, the students. So okay, but for the youngers, it's very difficult because you have to have money to take a bus and to take them. And many times, Vincentas, students don't have money even to eat. They go to school to eat. Can you imagine this situation? So you can't say to your student, please bring the money because we are going to take a bus to go to somewhere. It's not possible to do that. Because if you do that, you will abandon some of them. And that's, of course...
For example, just for interest, does school has some, let's say, budget allocated to non-formal?
Yeah, it's not much, but yes. For example, sometimes I bring some students to my university, and depending on where they study, they have some budget to go there. For example, in the schools of São Paulo city, that's different from state of São Paulo, from federal. It's different where the money comes. But and so sometimes it's possible, but it's not a common thing to do because involves many things, involves money, involves to get the students to go. But when it happens, and sometimes happens, and they love it because they love going to another, of course, spaces of studying. So it's very interesting. We have here what we need is to investment in this, because we have to have more conditions and budget, like you said, to take the students to these spaces, because I think it's a rich space of studying science. For example, Catavento is a beautiful science center. We have many things to do that, and this is one example. We have many of this here in São Paulo. Sometimes the parents by themselves take their kids and go to these spaces. For example, I think you know Ibirapuera Park. Ibirapuera Park is the bigger park here in São Paulo, but we don't have just park there. We have museums in there. We have spaces to see the stars, the moon. So we have many activities to do there, and we don't have to pay for this. So some parents by themselves take their kids and go there. And if you go there and on weekends, it's lots of people are enjoying this space, and this is very interesting. But what you said is about in the schools, actions in the schools with the teachers. This is more difficult for us because of the money that's involved. But we have some actions in this way. Not what we need, but yes, we have.
And what about now? It's not only now, but it's quite popular or modern, I would say, STEAM education, STEAM movement. For example, in Lithuania recently we launched 10 regional STEAM centers. And in particular, one center is in the structure of our university, in Vilnius University, Šiauliai Academy, and responsible for our region. And students from schools, different schools, can visit these centers to work in labs, to have some, for example, activities, to perform some activities, and also to receive some support, for example, methodological support to the teachers and students. What about Brazil?
Yes, I think we have the same. Not some places we have some spots, and it's not common around the Brazil, but we have some spots, and students can do that. In Catavento, as I was talking, I was there with my daughter, and yes, you can put you can do things. You can learn physics and chemistry by your hands, by your own hands. So I think that's very interesting thing. Like United States, we have many science centers. Here we don't have many, but we have some of them. Yes.
Okay. And as far as I know, you are interested in meta visualization issues, and would you agree that meta visualization is quite an important skill, obviously, and particularly in science education and also for chemistry education. Can you share shortly about this issue? Maybe from education perspective.
I love talking about that. And we should do something together, but we can talk this later. The understanding of scientific concepts often requires the use of explanatory models, chemistry, all of the time, for example. And we need to understand and articulate the submicro level of particles with the phenomenon we are observing. This is not an easy task, which we call macroscopic level. For example, the burning of coal. In this sense, when we try to construct explanatory models through drawings, what I've been researching right now, images, at the submicro level, it's essential that the student can review these concepts, reconstructing them when necessary, in the sense that meta visualization, as you said, can help, because it's in a very simple way, we can conceptualize it as the rethinking of a visualization. It's not just this, but to start speaking about that. being able to review the image that we have stored here and adapt it to a correct scientific vision. But it's not an easy process. It's a process. Sometimes you see a correct image, but of course it's not instantaneously. Oh, now I know. No. It's a complex, but it's very interesting because I have researched about this, Vincentas, and what I've seen, that's a difficult process, but it does work because you have an image in your brain and you have to revise this image if it's not correct. And how can you do that? Meta visualization is a way to do that. It's not the only way, of course, but it's a way to help this with the teachers and the students.
And it's obviously so important for chemistry because, as we know, quite often, for continuously, I think chemistry is mentioned in different studies also, and different studies shows that chemistry is the most boring, the most difficult subject at school, difficult to imagine, difficult to understand, etc.
Yeah, totally agree, because I have been a chemistry teacher during all of my life. And what you said, it's totally true, because for students it's very difficult to get into the abstract world. It's very difficult. Imagine one atom and interacting with another molecule. So this is very hard. Looks like easy, but it's not, because you can't see an atom, you can't see a molecule. So you have to work with models, and models you have to imagine it. And how to do with this? You have to choose methods that can facilitate this for the students.
Yes, sure. I remember, for example, our international project. I worked with this project with our team starting from 2005 to approximately 4 years. Our project was related to augmented reality in school environment and in particular science education. And I remember we prepared one scenario, a didactical scenario related to chemistry education, and it was chemical compounds, chemical reactions, etc. And it was really quite impressive how to involve this virtual reality, augmented reality, in order to understand different let's say issues in chemistry.
Yeah.
And but next concept, it's also I think closely related. This is metacognition, or key concept. Can you shortly describe, because this is also in your main interest, I would say.
Yes, I love metacognition. Interesting, because when you heard about when you hear about metacognition, oh, I don't know about this, I don't care about this. Of course you do, because it's in your classroom all of the time. I think it's important to focus on metacognitive skills, so that reviews, self-corrections, this is important, could be made by the individuals, and the teacher could work commonly with these skills when proposing activities for students. Oh, I can work commonly. Yes, in everyday life, every day in your classes, you can work with metacognitive skills. Thus, metacognition is present in all learning process, not about learning chemistry, but learning biology, learning mathematics, philosophy. And due to this, it has stood out lately. I think it's very important. And we, Vincentas, we have been rising the groups that are studying metacognition. This is very interesting all over the world. Once I was invited by the University of Helsinki to teach a course there, face-to-face, to the students, the master and doctorate students, because they were very, very interested about what's metacognition is and what can I do about that. And I sit Finland as an example. I was in Mexico to talk about this. I was in Lithuania. So I think it's a subject that's very interesting because it's for all of the subjects, not about chemistry, not about physics, but all of the students has to be autonomous because they are alone in the world, so they have to know how to deal with the situations.
As you mentioned before, that somehow like a holy or secret word. It sounds like metacognition. What does it mean, metacognition?
I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
And often you can receive simple answer, thinking about thinking. but
what's that?
What is that? Yeah, thinking about thinking.
Yes, thinking about thinking is just a very simple definition, just to start talking about metacognition. When you, for example, maybe in the morning you did something, you talked to someone else, and a kind of strife, and now you are thinking about that. Oh, why did I say that? No, I couldn't say that. So you are doing metacognition at this moment. So you are thinking about your thinking, for example.
It's like reflective activity. I am reflecting something.
Yes, but it's more than this. Yes, it's kind of reflecting things, but it's more than this because we have the aspect of metacognition that is auto-regulation of the cognitive process. That's a very big process. What students do during an activity, not in a point, a specifically point, but during all of the activity to learn about something. It's a process. And
is it like a monitoring? You are monitoring your activity and you're
monitoring,
trying to control your cognition.
One of them. Monitoring is another one, and auto-regulating the cognitive process. So metacognition refers to many things. It's not just thinking about your thinking. Okay, this is a way of starting to know about that. But auto-regulating, I think it's the most important. Because imagine it, you think that water is formed by one atom of oxygen, one atom of hydrogen. So you think, oh no, but the formula is H2O, so no, it's not one and one. So this simple example, you are doing an autocorrection. No, it's two atoms of hydrogen, not one, because H2, for example. So you right now you autocorrect. So this is very desirable for the education. Of course, the students could do this all of the time, and you have to practice this because metacognition is not inherent to us. Oh, I was born metacognitive person. Of course not. You will have to develop this during all of your life, and it's never late to start. Oh, but now I'm 50 years old. Doesn't care. You have somehow metacognitive strategies that you have been developed during your life. But if you have conscience about that, Vincentas, you can improve that. You can focus on that because you have conscience. This is another aspect of metacognition. You have to be conscious about what you know and what you don't. It's very interesting. I have to know what I know and what I don't know. Because if I know what I don't know, I can start studying, for example.
But just mention simple definition that it's thinking about thinking. But for example, OECD highlights metacognition or relationship in the definition of metacognition as second or higher order thinking process. That's a little bit complex understanding, and the process involves active control over cognitive processes, all cognitive processes. like you controlling your cognitive processes.
Yes.
And my next question would be in relation to this: what does well-developed metacognition look like, for example, at different levels of schooling? For example, let's say preschool level or primary school level, or when we're starting to learn chemistry, for example, in middle school, etc. Is it
good question? Good question, because you can work with metacognition in all of levels. But of course, if you are talking about, if you are dealing with preschool students, is different. You have to develop day in, day out. So when they get to the high school, what they are supposed to be is a metacognitive students. So as earlier as possible, you start to develop metacognition, better for the student. So it's good because you can actually, now I'm researching in all of the ages. I have master students focus on their research on the preschool and the young child, and I have one of them that are focused on higher education. So you can talk about metacognition in all of levels. This is very interesting. This is not what I'm saying only. The researchers have said this. So this is very interesting.
And what do you think, for example, teachers in general, or in particular Brazil teachers in Brazil, are prepared enough in this context or not?
Definitely not, but it's not a problem of Brazil. I've been in many countries, and when I ask a question, Vincentas, do you know what is metacognition? The answer is the same in all of the world. I don't know. Or I know, yes, kind of, but kind of is very, very, very not knowledge actually, because we know what's metacognition, but we don't have conscience about the name of the concept, because it sometimes metacognition, it scares people because it looks like difficult, but it's not.
Okay, but in this context, can we replace relatively obviously replace this term of this concept with another, for example, in education, like explicit education, or clearly expressed teaching, teaching, or easily understandable. It's like synonyms for explicit education, explicit instruction. It's like, for example, when teachers clearly explain to students why they are learning something, how it connects to what they already know, etc., etc. Can you shortly reflect on this? Explicit teaching.
Yes, this is very good question. It's difficult because I think we have a problem. Teachers don't know about metacognition, and if they don't know about metacognition, what I mean don't know, they don't have this conscience. What we are talking about, what is metacognition, and how could they teach to their students if they don't have this knowledge?
Yeah,
this is a problem.
I remember from just now from my school years, from my school time, when you're learning something, for example, in mathematics, some formula, some possible graphs, etc. And quite often I remember my personal question, not loudly expressed, but my question: why do we need that?
Yeah.
What is it? For what at home? What we are learning? Why we are learning this? And finally, what is the goal? Main goal for it?
Yes.
And by the way, quite often no answer. This is just a rule, or this is just written in textbook.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. Well, this is another problem, because it's how the teacher gives his or her class, because it depends on the knowledge they have accumulated during his or her formation. Because it's very difficult, because it's very common, you just reply what you have been through. So you have traditional classes, so I'm a teacher now, I will give traditional class. And I'm not saying that's not good to do traditional classes, but it's important to diversify the ways of teaching and learning, like Howard Gardner said about multiple intelligence, that we don't have just one way to teach someone else. We have many ways, and we have to do that, to work on this.
Yeah, but at least from my understanding, that the most important thing is clear explanation why we are learning this or that. Why? What is the goal for that? And finally benefit for that. Why we are learning something? Because otherwise it's not clear, not explicit. It would not be explicit teaching or learning.
Yeah, meaningful learning. Maybe we are talking about this, because if students, like you said, why do I have to learn this? That doesn't care, just do it. So you are not engaging your student when you do that. You are, of course, you are disposing the problem, but not actually, because you are losing your student when you do that. Just do it. You say, but I don't want just do it. I want to understand why I'm learning logarithmic. Why do I have to learn that? This is a difficult concept. Like chemistry, we have so many difficult concepts. Why do I have to learn this?
It's like this, you remember our colleague from Latvia, you know him, Professor Andris Broks, and he's usually saying this three main components, like cognition, it's going up. It's really not easy. It's quite difficult to go up, like to climbing into mountains. Yeah, this is cognition process. You need some support, you need some help, etc., from possible your teacher or supervisor, etc. After that, this is like consideration cycle. You should consider something what is already know, what you already know, and finally action. You implementing something.
Speaking of it, we are talking about metacognition, and I'm now deeping in learning about self-regulated learning, because we have three components of it. We have metacognition, cognition, of course, and motivation. That's what we are talking about. And self-regulated learning implies considering all of them together, because I can't consider just cognition. Do it because you have to do it. The student doesn't care about that. They want to go out, they want to do another things. So cognition, metacognition, because you have to autocorrect what you are doing, and motivation. All of these aspects are related. And if we disconsider one of them, what will happen with the learning process?
But the main question remains the same: how to implement in the real practice, in the real teaching practice, for example, at school.
Yeah.
Do you have some suggestions, for example, some?
Oh, yeah, many suggestions. It's what I've been researching about metacognitive strategies. We have to create a habit to do this with students, because if we don't, like we said, we are gonna lose these students. So we have to create strategies, and you can read articles, you can read many things about this, and this is what I really believe in education. You have to create these strategies to engage students. Like we said before, to become an education as a transformative process, they have to be engaged. If they are not engaged, you can't do anything, because they don't care. You can't do this, do it because you have to do it. It doesn't care for the student. So the teacher that are listening us right now, you should concern about strategies to engage students and to allow them to think and rethinking about the cognitive process. So it's all of them together. The self-regulated learning. I think this is a way, not the only way, but it's a way. You are thinking about that? You are...
Yes, I am thinking about teachers generally.
Yeah.
What do teachers need to know to teach metacognition well, or to use such approach in an appropriate way?
Yes, good question, and I think it's easier than we can than we could think, because teachers need to know about metacognition. What is this? How can I apply this in my classroom? Okay, I like the idea, but how can I do that? So we have some articles and courses that teachers could take part in it. It's about continuous formation. I think we don't have time when we are at university to learn everything, of course, and we have to continue our formation when we left the university. So I think this is the way. Don't concern about, oh, but I don't know this. Of course, we don't have to know about everything, but we have the responsibility to do these courses after the university, the continuous formation, develop a professional development. That it's the Angela subject. I think it's the key for the teachers to invest in professional development. This is for all of our lives.
And I see that quite naturally we are approaching to our next topic for our discussion related to teacher education. This is also, it's no doubt that it's a learning issue, I think, not only now, previously, currently, and I think in the future too. Teacher education remains the main concern. From one side, it's changing continuously, and the different changes depending, as you mentioned, also on state policy, on different paradigms, etc. But nowadays we are talking a lot about so-called new generation of teachers, and for me it sounds somehow not clear enough, I would say. What does it mean, new generation of teachers? Okay, we can read, for example, that he or she should be competent enough, should have enough knowledge in subject knowledge, teacher as a researcher, for example, right? Researcher competence, ability to plan, organize, to conduct different types of research, in particular applied research, identify learning barriers, evaluate teaching learning process, a lot of different tasks, and it's like multitasking activity, obviously.
Yes, it is.
The question is how it's possible for a particular teacher. But what do you think?
I agree with you about the knowledge of competence and all of the things you said. I think, of course, it's important. But I think there is one thing that teacher has to realize. You are dealing with people. You are dealing with human being. What I mean, When I'm talking about this with my students, future professors, I usually say that you have to hear what your students are saying. Simple like that. Because if you, of course, you prepare your class, it's good. I know how people learn. I'm absolutely prepared. Of course, okay, this is important. But you are gonna teach to someone else. Who is this people? Who are these people you are gonna teach? So I have to know about my student. If my student asks me a question, I have to listen this very carefully, because this is more important than what I'm gonna talk to him or her. Because what are their interests? What are they? Oh, I'm talking about chemistry, okay, but can I make a connection with what they want to know? Looks like difficult, but it isn't. And I think that the teacher has to be prepared to deal with human being. This is the key. Because if you don't do that, you just speak, and student, listen. What are you doing? You are so prepared and you can't connect with them. So I think, first of all, emotions, motivation, this is fundamental. So of course, you're gonna teach chemistry, physics, of course, but don't forget this. Here, listen to your students. Listen to what they are. I'm not saying that you have to agree with them. Oh, yes, now I want a day off. Oh, okay, a day off for everybody. No, I'm not talking about this. But listen about what they want to learn, what they want to be.
I do agree, but let's say we can argue that having in mind this theory, like service theory, managerial theory, that education is, or teaching is like a type of service. We're giving service to our students are our clients. And okay, we should follow their needs, their wishes, and etc., etc. For example, if they want to play, for example, something, let's play. If they want to enjoy something, to have some performance, okay, not education, but just a performance.
Yeah, no, it's not about this, because yes, this is a way that we don't have to follow. Of course, you have to listen, and when I say you have to listen, not to follow, because you are in charge. You know what's important. You know what you have to teach, what you have planned. So you have to consider the student in this, not to do what the student are talking to you to do. Oh, I don't want to do anything. What about a day off? Oh, of course, day off. Let's play something. No, it's not that. You are in charge. You are an adult. They are not adults. They are adolescents. They are children. So you are in charge. I'm always talking to my students. You are in charge, but you don't have to be authoritarian. No, you have to do that. You have to learn that because I want you to learn that. Of course, it's a way to teach if you want to do this kind of teacher. But if you do that, you will lose your student, maybe.
Yes, but just came in my mind, for example, situation in Russia. We discussed that it's not maybe connected directly with politics, but we can observe, for example, every day how school performance, or how in schools teachers and students acting every day. For example, in relation to current situation in Ukraine, in this war, and for example, students drawing some symbols, students performing some tasks for defense tasks, for example, making some some very, very strange things, and this is teaching process. This is also teaching process.
Yes.
It means that education, or in narrow understanding, teaching can be so powerful weapon.
Yeah.
In this aspect.
To good and to bad.
Yeah.
Because you have a weapon in your arms. Yes, I agree with you. But I think this, what we're talking about, is very particular, because this is very absurd what's happening in Ukraine. So if students want to discuss about this, yes, we have to discuss about this, even in a chemistry class, because this kind of problem is a big problem, and students are suffering with this, and they don't know what to do with this suffering.
Okay, but you mentioned if students want or express their interest, we can discuss on something. But from another side, it can be special regulation or special direction to speak only about something. For example, in case of mentioned country, I'm not going to repeat again, but with the special regulation right now for teachers, what to explain for students, how to explain for students, and
and it's very difficult.
And, as you mentioned, for example, about education policy in Brazil, in your country, it's also depends on such policy.
Yeah, but remember, the teacher is always in charge. This is the big question. Teacher is in charge, so he has to balance the situation. This is very difficult. It looks like easy, but we know it isn't. How can I deal with this situation?
Does it mean, or do you mean that, for example, it's a possibility for politicians, for example, to manipulate with teachers, or via teachers, in order to reach students and to orientate them to appropriate direction?
Yes, this is a big discussion. Yes, I think we have to give arguments to the students, and they have to construct their ideas. I don't think it's a good way. I told them what I think, and I want you to think of how I think. This is not a good way, because the students have their own conceptions, their own opinions, and we have to provide discussions respecting all of the sides. This is a tough task. We know that, because it's very difficult to respect another opinion that's different from mine. But this is the life. And so we have to teach them how to do that.
And my next, not maybe directly question, but just my concern, it would be nice to know your opinion. For example, sometimes in educational or open discourse, we can have some explanation, like, for example, psychological knowledge, some other knowledge and skills are important for teachers, managerial, for example, primary skills, teacher as manager, teacher as researcher, etc. But for example, subject knowledge or content knowledge, not so important. For example, personally, I don't agree with this position, because in my understanding, teachers should have good background in content, should have good content, deep content knowledge, despite that we are living in, let's say, informational age, easily accessible information, etc., etc. It's my understanding. They should be well prepared in aspect of content knowledge, not only didactical knowledge. What do you think?
No, yes, I agree with you, of course. We have to, actually, when I'm a teacher, I'm an educator as well. So I have to know chemistry, for example, physics, biology, of course. Because if I don't know chemistry, what I will teach for them? Of course, it's not possible. But I think it's not just this. I have to know chemistry, yes. But if I'm teaching chemistry and one student hit another one, what do I do then? What can I do? Face into that. It's a simple example, but it's very common in classes because I've been in classroom during all of my life. So I'm not talking about chemistry right now. I'm talking about you can't hit your colleague. You have to respect him. In this time, I'm acting as an educator, not a chemistry. I know chemistry, but what I do with chemistry in this situation? So this is because the profession of teacher is so complex, because you are dealing with people, with adolescents, with children, and the things are happening all of the time. We have conflicts in the classroom that have influence in your classroom. So I agree with you, of course, we have to know about chemistry or subject, but we have to know, to deal with this situation. We have to act as an educator, because I am the adult in the situation. And I have to do something. I can't just, I didn't see what happened and go and move forward. Yes, it's a way to do that, but I don't think it's a good way. You have to take the situation and to learn a lesson from it. You can talk to the students after the class or during the class. I don't know, depends on the context. So I think that being a teacher is more than content. We have content, no doubt about it, but not all content. We have more than this. And why this is so difficult?
Approximately 2 years ago, Lithuania accepted so-called national idea. It was a special procedure, and we accepted officially some so-called national ideas. And one of them was that teacher should be the most prestigious profession. In few years, it sounds very good, but we will see is it real or not, how to implement this idea, at least up to 2025, maybe later. And how would you rate the prestige of the teaching profession in Brazil?
Oh, unfortunately, the teaching profession in Brazil is not highly valued right now. And the situation was worsened even more as we have a lack of investment in this sector. In my opinion, this is horrible, because without education, we have no hope. Like I said, people perish. So we have to move forward and keep fighting. I think, like Japan, the professor is absolutely valued there. And in Finland, I've been there. I have the same feeling. And look, the teacher is the key for all of the others professions. So you are educating your students because you have children, and you of course you give education for your children, but it's just part of them, and another part is at school, wherever you like or not, but it is. So if you have good teachers prepared, of course it will be better for the formation of our students. So I think the teacher would be the most valued profession in all of the world. It's very difficult to get this, but I think it's very important to invest in this.
Okay. And I remember my visit in Brazil, and we discussed, it was also based on my observation, my personal empirical observation, that some students were, let's say, free, absolutely no lessons, particular time, and I asked why they are doing nothing, let's say, just in school. And the answer was, we have not enough teachers. For example, today the teachers is not in the school. I don't know why, and nobody is able to replace him or her for particular lesson. My question is, what about need of teachers, of shortage of teachers? What is the situation in your country?
Yes, like you said, in Lithuania, here's not different. We also have a shortage of science teachers, specifically physics and chemistry, mainly.
And
In
why?
Brazil,
Why, for example?
yeah, in Brazil in general, because I think these professions are very specifically. Maths, for example, we have more teachers, and chemistry and physics, we have less teachers. And to give you an example, when I give a course for teachers in Acre, I was talking to you, in the north of the country, among of the teachers who taught chemistry there, I remember that only one was graduated in chemistry, and others had different backgrounds, like mathematics, engineers, teaching chemistry, because we there at that time, 10 years ago, we didn't have chemistry teachers, we didn't have physics teachers. Instead of this, we had mathematics teachers given this subject. So we have this kind of problem. The formation, we need more chemistry teachers, more physics teachers, and the people, like students, don't want to do chemistry because it's difficult. They don't want to be physics because it's difficult. Of course, it's a sense common, because when you study something, you can learn wherever you want. But we have this problem, and a lack of good teachers in the way of the formation. Because of course, who is teaching chemistry, wherever he's chemistry or not, he's trying to do the best he can. But of course, they don't have the formation, they don't have the background to give good classes on chemistry.
But
For
possibly
example,
it's like a consequence of some trend that learning in particular from the students' perspective, that learning should be easy, should be fun, approximately without any efforts. It should not be hard, it's difficult, etc. This is just entertainment at school. Possible this is a consequence.
yeah, I don't think it's just this, but yes, I think this is related to. I remember when I was in high school, and so, chemistry is so difficult. How can you like chemistry? You are going to do chemistry? Oh, Jesus Christ. Looks like I was crazy. Maybe I was, but I thought, but I like chemistry. I want to be a chemistry. But it's not a common thought about students.
My personal experience, because then I remember I started to learn chemistry at 8th grade. It was first year at that time it was 8 years school, and next level was secondary school. And it was totally unclear. And I remember I received after the first semester, I received negative evaluation, negative mark, absolutely black mark. I thought, wow, how is possible? Why I am in such a situation? I need to know, I need to learn chemistry, and I started step by step to understand.
I totally understand you.
Yeah, and after secondary school it was approximately okay, and finally I decided to continue at university chemistry and biology study program. It was my way, my experience.
Yes.
So you should find so inner efforts. How is possible? I need to understand. Yeah, but
I can understand.
At the same time, I need to put some efforts. It's not Obviously, it's not a game. It's not a play. I need to put some effort to invest something in order to understand. Obviously, in support of teachers, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, we're approaching to some last questions. My typical questions: smart or competent teacher? What do you think? Which one is better?
Oh, both of them. I like to say that teachers in Brazil in general are committed people and try as much as possible.
Solange, why I am asking this? It's not a joke. I remember it was during, if I remember well, it was during IST symposium in Prague, in Portugal. And as I remember well, one keynote presenter lady was from United States, and she spoke about teacher education, and she used this term, smart teacher. And I remember colleague John Oversby from UK, he raised the question, what do you mean by smart teacher?
Yeah.
It was deep and so hot discussion, because he said, competent teacher, he or she has some competence, enough competence, competent teacher. What does it mean smart? And what is most surprising, the answer was, it's the same.
Oh, good.
Smart
Yes.
and competent teacher. Just smart, it's mainly popular term in American English possible, and of course I am not expert in this issue, but also competent teacher.
I get it, because I was thinking about the difference, and I thought, smart, what does it mean? Smart, competent, I don't know, but both of them are important. I don't know the difference actually, but okay. Teacher needs to be everything. Smart, competent, wherever. Okay. I get it. It's a huge discussion.
And based on your opinion and your own experience, teaching profession, is it vocation or not?
Or a myth.
Or yeah.
Yeah. There is a common sense that is enough to have a vocation, and it's ready. You can be a teacher. Look, it doesn't work that way, because is that what a doctor is like? You decide to go to medical school and start doing surgeries? Of course not, because you need training for do that. In my view, the same for the teacher. He or she needs to have the training, the formation to act as such. All of what we have been talking here today, because to teach chemistry, for example, you need to know chemistry, as we talked before, of course, but also you have to know so many other aspects, such as how to teach the content, how do people learn, how is the epistemology of chemistry. I remember Aldrich's talking about this in Lithuania. It's very interesting, the epistemology of chemistry, or of science in general, just to name a few things. So vocation means that one understands that he or she wants to work in this profession. Okay, when I'm 12 years old, 13, I want to be a teacher. Okay, but you are not a teacher yet. You have to be formed, you have to have the background, you have to learn many things, so you are a teacher. And so I think get some time to get there. And I think, yes, we have a vocation, but it's not the most important. The most important is the formation, is the background you are going to connect. And
possible, I hope you agree with this position, that this is also continuous professional development.
Yeah.
Let's say you are never finished as a teacher.
Yeah.
Never formed finally. You should go further and further. in your professional development every day and every time.
Don't matter what age you are. Oh, I've been teaching for 30 years. Okay, good. But you have to know more and more. You have to do it day in and day out.
Yeah. Okay, Solange, time is going quite fast, and we already discussing 2 hours and approximately 2 hours, and I hope that we shared some ideas, some thoughts, and it was at some extent interesting and useful. And I hope we will continue, possible in real life, our discussions, our common understanding to enlarge it. At least one possibility seems to be in this year, at the end of July, in your country, in Brazil.
Yeah. Are you coming?
During IOST symposium. I already made the registration, sent an extended abstract, and now I am checking some possibilities for visit. We will see, but at least we have a chance in the near future. And I hope that it's really good possibility for us, mainly having in mind 2 years gap related with COVID-19.
Yeah.
And at the end, I want to express my wishes, my thanks to you, personal to you, to your team, to your university. I hope that I will have another chance to visit this nice university, Federal University of ABC, and to meet good colleagues, etc., possible students. At the same time, I hope that you will be able to visit, you will find some possibilities to visit Lithuania again. At least we are planning to organize our next Baltic Sea Symposium next year in 2023. It will be next symposium. Let's hope that without any pandemic, without any extra situations, and we will meet again from different parts of the world and continue our discussions on our favorite issue, science education. I wish you big success in your personal and academic life, and thank you very much for your attention, for your time, and for our again a nice discussion. Possible you want to add some final words?
Yeah, for sure. It was amazing here discussing with you, and I think we could do this more times because it was amazing. I thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much. Yes, I hope to see you soon in Brazil in July.
Okay.
July.
Thank you, Solange, and we have a nice day because it's approximately morning in Brazil right now.
Yes, 11 o'clock. Yes.
Thank you very much again.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.